Okay, hi guys. Thanks for joining us. Today, what we'll be covering will be, and I'm getting an echo, so 1 second. That kills the echo. Okay, so what we'll be covering, we'll be finishing off what we did last week, which was get up to this stage, and once my system starts to work. And as you can see, we've already got a character, however not fully finished. So what we're going to be doing today, we'll be finishing off the face, so adding a little bit more detail, along with the body. Then what we'll be doing, we'll be taking it in, we'll be remeshing it, so getting it to this stage here. So what this means is when you put it into a video game or a CGI into a film, you really don't want to put the guy who was previously in it, which is about current moment, I think that's about 1.4 million. Yeah, 1.4 million. We'll be increasing that to 5 to get the finite details. With this stage, what I'll be doing is talking you through how I remesh things and then getting all the UV maps sorted out. Then what we'll be doing, we'll be taking it into Substance Painter. Let me just move that up, which is this program. This is a PBR texturing program. It's really great, especially when you want to do real-time painting, because you can get real-time response, and it's non-destructive. What I mean by that is where it's all layer-based. If you do have any mistakes, you can actually just switch things out. Also, with it being Substance Painter, with it being using certain SBSAR file format, you can actually build in alterations depending on what material you're using. After that, we'll be taking it into Blender. So Blender and getting it so you can actually get the textures straight onto it. I use a plugin for this, which is called try and pronounce the name of it. Exotan. There we go. Which is this plugin here, which is done by a company which is Xatula. I'll leave a link in the description below. And we'll be moving from there. What I'm just going to do is post our Discord link in the chat and downside, so if you want to join that. So if you have any 3D modeling questions in the future, or any questions about ZBrush, Substance Painter, Blender and such like that, along with any plugins I use, feel free just to ask in there. Okay, just posted it just now. Okay, so as you can see, this has got that texturing on, and as you can, and here it's got all the nice detailing on. We will be adding more and more details on this into the textures. Okay, I'm going to close this so I can save CPU. Okay, let's open up from where we were before. Okay, file. Nope, let's go use Lightbox. Okay. Do you want to save changes? No. Okay, let me just boot this up. Okay, so this is where we started from. We finished off at our last stream. What I'm going to do now is go subdivide them again. And let me do one last thing. I need to import a alpha map just to make my life easier on the next step. So last session we made a custom alpha map, which this guy currently has on him, especially around the skin area. And where is it? Here it is. Should be in PSD, and here it is. To create this map, all I did was use cloud sims using the light grey, and white. Used the cloud filter, created that, and exported it out. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is subdivide again, and as you can see, it's got jumped up to 5.6 million. So not exactly ideal for you working in films or any games. So what I'm going to do, switch this to spray again, go over them lightly to add those details, and as you can see, it's coming in nicely again. You can use bigger brush if you want. I'm going to do that especially around the legs so you can get more of a detailing. Be careful when you do spray. If I hit it like that, as you can see, it clips the arm, the hand, which you really don't want it to do. Also, make sure you don't have your intensity too high. If you have it an intensity too high, it may not be the result you want. Okay. I don't know how I missed that spot last time. Redo his shoulders, back of his head. As you can see, even though he's got bumps on the back of his head, it's added a lot more like skin follicles on it, which gives it a really nice effect. What I'm going to do now, jump this up, close this down, go there. Add a few more heavier details. Redo the arms, so I'm going to downsize this. Okay, so the original concept for this character is he's going to have a shellish forearm and upper arm, and then he is going to have more organic joints, especially around these sections here. With that, it just saves us time when we go to the rigging stage, which will probably be the next episode. Of course, I don't want to try to cram it all into one episode, because that would not really work out. Okay. And as you saw in the intro, we did do some detailing on the head, so I'm going to reduce the intensity down to roughly around 15. See how that looks. Yeah, that looks fine. And use the spray, and nice to give it that finalized detail. Okay, now there. Just remember to get under the chin. And we're going to do under this section of the hand here. So reduce and smooth around the edges. To focus up straight on like what I've just done, so if you go off angle like that and you want to focus all in, all you need to do is hit F and it'll reset the view so it's got full character in. Okay, increase draw size again. What I'm also going to do is alter this guy's angle because he looks a little more cankles than anything else. So move this guy ankles in a bit like that. So yeah, when you are moving things around, especially view, just make sure you always unhit control. Otherwise, it sometimes has a bad habit of resetting the position to where you had it before, as you just saw then. increase intensity again, just last few bits. And now we'll finish this guy off. Okay. So we got like really nice skin freckles on top, and what we're going to do next is, forgot about this, just smooth the arm off. So I'm going to turn that to match freehand, hold shift. And now we've done that, what I'm going to do, switch that back to spray and do the underarm. One thing great about the spray tool is you can actually, it acts more like a spray can, so you don't have to worry about it coming out all in one go. It jitters it out a bit more. You can do this in Substance Painter if you want, but it's one of those things which it's down to preference. I really like to bake from high to low, which you can do in either Blender or Substance Painter, which is one of the great tool sets you can use. Just add a bit more there. So I'll go ahead about there. Okay. Our next stage is to now remesh it. The most important thing is when you're remeshing, always make a duplicate of your high resolution mesh. So you have a high one and then you have a low one. If you do this on the high and you don't have it again, it's not going to be easy to get it back up to where you had it. So a simple way of doing that is go down to your subtools here, click on the one you want and hit duplicate. And as you can see, now we've got two here. I'm going to untick this one because we don't want the high one on. Always rename. So as the one I've just hit is high, so all I'm going to do is rename this to high poly character. And also export him out. The reason why I'm exporting this guy out is because it will make my life a lot easier. What I'm going to do is call this EP2 assets. Okay, high poly. Okay, now what we need to do with this guy hidden is, and he's like, once he's fully exported out, feel free to ask any questions if you do have any, because then on the Discord, we'll be reposting this onto YouTube and adding all the links in the description below if you're rewatching on YouTube. Okay. So now on this one, I'm going to rename this low poly. I have messed around this whilst we've been off stream from last week. So during that time, I started working around with figuring out which one's going to give us the best remesh. What I'm going to use is the Z remesher tool, which is this here. My best results, what I got out was 8. However, what I suggest you do is have a mess around with this. One of the most important things is, I'm going to put 8 there so I can get it straight away. What I'm going to say is make sure when you mess around with this, you don't always use 8. You can adapt because 8 does strip a lot off. But we're lucky with this guy, we can get it back in there once we do the high to low baking. And what I'll do now is I'll show you what it looks like before I start using the Z Remesher guides. So I'm going to hit this. This can, dependent on your machine, this can take a few minutes or no time at all. Okay. So what this is doing now is it's retopologizing. What I mean by that, so this is 5.6 million. What it's going to do is take it down to more affordable. What I mean by that is if you try to put half a dozen of these guys into a game or a film, you will be talking a long while until it's rendered or anything like that, and game engines severely don't like it because they have to deal with counts. Okay, now it's remeshed it, and as you can see, it's kept most of the definition around here, but it's made it a little bit blocky. But this is what we're after. So once you put this into Blender or 3ds Max or Maya, and you put smooth onto it, it will smooth all these out and make it look flatter, not as squared off as it is now. You can see these are joints. It's not done too bad on these joints, so when we animate it, it's going to have plenty of move room. However, what I am going to do is take it back to a previous model and use the Z Remesher guides, which is in the setting here. So this one here. So let's take it back. Some of the most important parts you really want to protect is the facial area, and as you can see, it keeps snapping. So the facial area, so you want to try to protect this. Okay, I missed this one whilst I was spraying, so what I can do is, that's a bit too high. Just jump on the high tool. So what I'm going to do now is just delete this high one. No, delete the low one. Just so when I add the details, it's going to show up properly. Oh, that's it. So yeah, now that's got the detail we want. Right down here. Okay, so duplicate this guy again. Rename to low. Take one off. Okay. Go use the Z Remesher guides just here. What I really want to protect is these cheek lines down here. This really nice cheek line. So all you need to do is drag it along there. All these are is it suggests where you want some more loops. So just like that. Some of the areas where you really want extra ones, especially around the mouth. So what you do is do it inside the mouth. Then add another ring on the out. That's a bit of a stretch. Just like that. I really like to add them around the, especially where any joints are, so around here. So I'll just draw these on. With these, always be careful when you draw. You don't want to add it on to this section here, because if I overdraw, it can cause issues later. Again around the wrists. And this is what I didn't want to happen. So yeah. Now I do it around the knees. Like I said, these are only suggestions when it was being remeshed. So it tries to keep where you want to put additional loops in. Okay. I've got symmetry switched on, so it actually does it on both sides. So always make sure, if you want to do it real quick, just make sure you've got symmetry switched on. All you need to do is hit X, and you should have, like this here, you got to show 2 dots, depending on which settings you got on. And if you do miss up, don't have it on a slightly bit higher, just reduce it down to 2 and make sure it's on the axis you want it on. Okay. So now I've done those, I just want to put one or two more up here and the facial area. So keep this nose. And this cheek line here. Okay, now go back to geometry and hit remesh, which I need to set that back to 5. And hit remesh. Whilst this is processing through, again, what it's doing is recalculating all the mesh again, making sure that it reduces it down to a decent, considerable size. Okay. Okay, now it's done that, and as you can see, it's superimposed over the top of each other, which is what we want. And as you can see, let me just switch off the high resolution, and you can see here with those guides, it's added a lot more on now. which means once we do facial animation using key shapes in Blender, it will make our lives a lot easier. Just send and post out. Okay. I'm going to save this, so if we do have an accidental crash, we just had a quick save just then. However, ideally you want to make sure it's always saved in a known location, such as, I'm going to save it in here in assets here, name this 6, and I'm going to call it Remeshed. Okay, now it's just saving. Okay. What we now need to do is go to actually doing the UV mapping. So what UV maps are is it is how we texture things, because at the moment we could texture this in ZBrush. However, it's not ideal to do that in. It's great if you do it just doing like snapshots inside ZBrush. However, since we're going to try to animate this, rig it, and stuff like that, we need to take it out. Now, the reason why I do all my animations in ZBrush, not animations in ZBrush, my UV mapping in ZBrush, if I built the character in it, because it's got some really great tools. One of them happens to be the UV Master tool, which is a plugin that is now integrated inside. So this tool here, what this does is it can create UV maps within seconds. So I'm just going to hit UV map. It's going to go process it through and see what it comes out like. I'm going to redo the UV, and the main reason why I don't like using this method is because it does this. Especially since we've got shells on our character, this is not ideal. So what I'm going to do, unflatten it, and I'm going to take it back a few steps. So this stage here. Now, the way I do mine is I use polygroups. What are polygroups are a way of dissecting different areas, especially if you want to do detailing and stuff like that. So what way you create a polygroup is, what you can do is hit Control, and you can use Control and then draw masks out. So let's have a look. I'm going to do some really rough masking, and then once we've got it, I'm going to go around it with the paintbrush tool to get the bits I really want and take out the bits I don't want. And so the drag rect tool is a great way of getting a lot selected quickly. However, it's not great on fine details like this down here. Going to do now, switch to freehand, and I'm going to go over it with my brush tool and go create draw size a little bit bigger, turn down the focus size so it doesn't do that. So as you can see there. we have to do it on the low poly one, because once you remesh it from high to low, it actually loses the poly groups which was created on the high version. So keep on going around here. Reduce the draw size, make sure that's 0. This stage does take time to do, solely because when you make the polygroups, you don't want to make sure you don't have anything you don't want in it. This is highly tricky, especially when you're going around armpits and such like this, like here, and wrists here. Okay, let's have a look. How's the forearm come up? So the way I'm creating these masks is I'm just holding Control, and it creates the masking pen. To take anything out, all you need to hit is Control Alt, and it will subtract it like that. I'll put the pen back in. So I want to add those in to make it look cleaner. Like I said, this stage does take a bit more time than you think it does. A great way to check is if it's working is close that, jump down to here. Poly Tools is in your tool section, normally down the side. If you don't have that up, just click up here and drag it down the side. So poly groups and create from mask, well, group mask, like that. To make sure it's done it, what you can do is here, and now it's create this real, it's altered the color. What you can do is hit click, do that, hit click, Control Shift click, and it will select those sections. As you can see here, I've got some bits missing, especially on here and this bit here. So what we're going to do is Control undo that selection. So it was this which I had on, and something on their underarm. So there's that section there. So all I'm doing is hitting Control Z to take it back, and then creating the mask again. And it's not that done. That's better. As you can see, it's created a really nice bit here. Especially, luckily, with these being the underarm, it's not that much of an issue. So, well, I am going to clean that up. So just subtract sections of it. Mask. Mask again. Like I said, to do this, it can take time. It's better. Lucky with sections around here, we can actually get away with it, but we'll go add a little bit more on here. Pretty much again. That's better. See here now. What we can do is leave that section so it's more the underarm, and as you can see, it's nice and clean circles around there, and same on this section here. Okay. Now what we need to do is create the poly mask for the poly group for the face. Turn this off. I hate it when it does this. Just double check. Same time. Yeah. Okay, now we just need to make sure we get the face done. Same again, we need to make sure it's clean around the edges. Can do mask selection like this on the front. Drag around there. Again, up the back of the face, below the head. And we need to make one, we always need to make sure that underneath this ridge, which is in it, we need to make sure it's not selecting all of it, like that. Just go around. Yeah, I've tagged his shoulder, but what we can do is take that off at the end, because I'm more focused on getting this right. Sometimes masking in areas such as under the chin can be a pain because it really, really does not like going in the right area. So that. Gonna have to clean this up. Tagged a bit of his shoulder, I can't see it now. See what happens when I make poly group again. can see it's really uneven under here, so I'm going to go back a step. Mask again. You see that it's really nice and clean, especially around the edges, except out there. But we can fix that. Actually, that's not too bad actually. So I'll click off there. Go back around. Create a mask again. Like I said, sometimes when creating these, it's not as simple as we hope. Create mask again. There. That should. Yes. That's really nice, clean edging around there. So meaning, now when we do the UV mapping, also what I'm going to do is take the mouth and turn that into its own poly group as well. Which I'm going to add into this poly. Just make it easy for me. So poly mask. Now trim this up. The reason why I'm doing this is during my test stages, whenever I create the mask, it creates a really nasty seam, especially down the center gap down here, and I really don't like it. So the simplest way I found to fix that is by creating a mask for the inside of the mouth. It also means we can texture that separately and not have to worry about it as much. Okay, now I'll create a hologram for mask. Okay, so I'm going to take that out. Go in the mouth and do again. Create mask. Yeah, I'll do. Like I said, sometimes this is trial and error to make sure you get it right. Just like there. Got the entire mouth. Okay, the reason why I created these polygroups is because what, as you saw with the UV mapping, it didn't go as well as we wanted it to. So with this, what we can now do, click on that, switch on polygroups, and you can see we've got all different polygroups. Now if we go to our plugin, which is the UV Masters tool, what this has is a protect tool. So we can paint where you want to protect. So I want to protect the face. So I'm going to switch to standard. What tool am I select on? Let's just save the file here. Save as 7. Okay. And how it's doing it. So what this is doing is it's actually painting areas where you want it to make sure that you don't have seams. Turn the alpha, that's what we call the issue. So as you can see here, painting it all in. So this now makes it so that it tries not to add seams, but like I said, it always adds one nastily down this area down here. And you can paint it so it tracks seams. So I'm going to turn that down. So we get track seams down the back of the skull, down there. And make sure I've got them on the underarm, on the shell part of the areas down here. If you don't put these seams in, it can cause issues, especially when texturing. Because if you have your UV map seam down here, it's going to show up a lot. So what I'm going to do, F. Now paint the seam so it's going down the central spine. It doesn't have to be perfect, but straight line. Just try to get as straight as you can. So I always do mine on the inner side of things. So down there. So it creates a nice, so it's easier to hide the seams on the inside than it is on the outside. Especially on feet. So I'm going to make it so the feet are somewhat separated. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Now if I switch on polygroups, which as you can see here, what I'm going to do is hit unwrap. Hopefully this actually takes them to polygroups. If it doesn't, I'll switch on to hit that button which says polygroups. Okay, now let's see what happens when I hit flatten. And no, it hasn't. So what I'm going to do is unflatten. Track, so it's there, use polygroups, and unwrap. So hit show seams. Not existing seams. Check seams. As you can see, it's done it down here. And the ones which we painted in for the underarms, as you can see, it's actually took those into consideration. But we still end up with this one down the jawline. But that's not too much of an issue at the moment. Now we have this. What I'm going to do, this is going to sound really weird, sorry, is I'm going to actually take off these polygroups. But I'll show you why I'm going to take these polygroups off. I'm going to click export. So that's the high poly character. And I'm going to change this one so it's with underscore poly. And now what I'm going to do is create a group from mask. So no matter what now, if I export this out, it will have those polygroups. So what I'm going to do is actually save it. So with it saving it called UV map. So we can jump back to the stage if there is any issues. And now what I'm going to do is jump back up to here. Nope, geometry. Nope, polygroups, sorry. Create group from mask. And it stripped them all away. What I'm going to do now is export this out without the polygroups. And then save it again. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to save without the undo history because the undo history just adds so much more to it. Call it 9 and call it without. So now what I've just done is now if I reopen this, all that history is gone, but it has saved the character down to a point where there is quite literally nothing compared to what it is with history. What I'm doing now is I'm going to close this since we don't need it anymore. Now I'm going to show you why I chose to do it with export it without the polygroups. So open Blender. Go to File, Import, OBJ, Livestream, Asset 2. So yeah. So this is with polygroups. Now, if I rotate this, if I do export it with polygroups, it does this. You can literally split the character up into sections, which is not great when you want to reanimate them. You can use a join tool, but you still have verts not attached to each other, which will cause issues when doing rigging. So I'm just going to delete all this. and I'm going to import the one without polygroups. Now, can you see here? It's just one major mesh. So if I move that, do that, not much. To double check if the polygroups, well, the UV maps have transferred over, all you need to do is, dependent on the version of Blender and if you messed around with it, jump onto UV maps editor, jump onto this, hit that, and as you can see it's done here. But this has done it really ways I don't like it, because what I'm going to do in Poly Painter is actually break it up into different sections. So have different material for the face, the shell. I might not do it shell, I might do it more of like a skin texture, and have the body as one of its own. A quick way to do this, since we've already got them all selected, is if you jump on to the polygon, this one here, which is the poly face, click on it again, hit Control, hit this function down here, which shows all the islands. Click on that, hit Control L on the UV mapping side, so this side, and it selects everything in that. Then all you need to do is, I always drag one out from the side. No, not. Okay, where does this? So drag it from this side, then go click on to properties, which brings this up. So hit Control L again on this, go to your material, which is this section here, rename it, call it body, and assign that. Then create a new texture and go call it, actually I'm going to no, I'll keep those on the shell as well. So you can go select, kind of hit Control L again, create a new material, hit assign, create one like that, call it face. And the last one, which is the shells. Easiest way to click these, well, select these, is go into your mesh. I've got see-through switched on, so do that, click that, that. Now if I hit Control O on this side, as you can see, it selects everything again. So create a new group, call it, I'm going to call it forearm and overarm. I'm just going to call it arm actually. And assign it. To double check if everything's gone on, all you need to do is jump onto your materials. It should turn up purple for some reason. It's just a weird default color which uses. Hit green and then create diffuse. At the current moment, I do have mine set to cycles. This is just so you can actually get the slightly better version of it. Okay. You can clean up in Blender if you want. It just takes a little bit more time, which if I wasn't streaming, I would do. But okay, so now if I select body, as you can see, it selects everything. What I'm going to do is close this panel down because I don't need it anymore. So I drag this here over the side there, and pop this out and hit. Actually, I do need that panel. Class, properties, and okay, and repack, which I call it, which is pack islands. So it actually reordinates the entire texture. Then all you need to do is click off, select face just by hitting select here, and it'll select everything in that. Then repack island again. So click select that, select, and hit repack island again. As you can see, it's actually made things a lot bigger, meaning you can get a lot more detail. Sorry about this cough, guys. What I like to do as well, since this body is on a really dodgy angle, select it and rotate it 90 plus, so everything is upright. Let's see what happens. Now what I need to do is re-export this out with, due to this now having the corrected UVs. Yes, it looks like everything is packed over each other, but that's how it should look like because I've got this selected. So if I now select this, hit select, it gave it the correct proportions. Okay, now what I need to do is unclick that. All I need to do is export as OBJ or wave format. Go back to where we were. I'm going to call it with. I'm going to call it low poly with. I'm going to call it corrected. Low poly corrected UVs. I'm going to take that color out actually, because it could cause issues. Okay, now I'm going to export that out. And what I'm going to do in this, I'm going to leave Blender open in the background. What I'm going to do is switch on start on the plugin I'm using, which is Xtolly, which I'll bring up in a second. XOLTO. Okay, so I use this, which is the Gumtree. It's on Gumtree, and it is this one here. Where is it? Yeah, this one here. It costs about $25. It costs about $25, which I don't know what that equates to in the US. I think it's around 18, 19 quid, something like that. So it's not too bad priced, and it's a nice tool. What this allows me to do is actually send materials from the mesh straight over onto the Blender and not have to deal with any material creation. So I've got this open already on this screen. I'll just drag it over. I will leave a link to the software in this description below. I am using Substance Painter 2017. I am looking to upgrade it to 2019. Okay. So with this stage, all you need to do to create the material, well, to start creating this project, is go to here, click on New. The plugin only uses metallic and rough for some reason. It could be getting corrected later on in the series, but I'm just going to use what we've been given at the moment. I'm using AMD technology, so that's mostly OpenGL. Sometimes it is DX, but I also use OpenGL, and I'm using 4K textures. Now what I'm going to do is redirect to where we have our new low poly, which is this one here, and click OK. When it imports, if you do have any issues, all you need to do is double check things, and I actually have done a mistake on this. So what I'm going to, as you can see, it's brought it out really blocky and pixelated. Quick way of fixing this is to click on this, go back to default, which should look like this, go to tools and hit smooth, then re-export it out. So always export smoothed. If you have anything blocky, unless it is hard surface, even with some hard surface, I would sometimes do suggest it, or dependent on certain circumstances, and I'm going to select create mesh here, so this one here. Let's just expand it out again. What I'm going to do is go to edit materials, I'm going to select this, and then we select that. Okay, and voila, brought it in correctly. Our next stage is to create the high to low. The way Substance Paint, you can either do it in Blender or most 3D applications, but with Substance Paint it actually has it baked in. What I'm going to do now is actually save this project. So save this in the folders we've been using. So assets 2 and call it Alien Texture. Alien Texture EP2. So I know which one it is. 0, 1. I always save in increments, so it means I can go back if I want. Great thing about Substance Paint, it is non-destructive. As long as you haven't altered a layer, you can delete the layer above it. It's somewhat like Photoshop, but with this you can actually paint straight onto it. Okay. Now go to this panel here where it says texture settings. You can do this at the beginning, but I don't like to. So click on bake texture. Always check this. So the output bar. It's one thing which has caught me up all the time. It does say I can render up to 8K, however it is experimental on this build. I'm not sure about 2019. So all you need to do is click in high definition mesh, is just click on this, find the high poly mesh, which is this one here, click on it, hit bake all. This can take a few minutes, up to a few minutes, due to what it's actually doing. So as you can see here, it sometimes does look like it's crashing machine, but it's not, because my processor is only running at 7.7. It's just due to the high density of the mesh, the high poly mesh, with it being 5.66 million, something like that. Okay. This can take up to a few minutes. So this software is actually done by a company which is called Algorithmics, which has been bought out by Adobe this year. I know some people I've been talking to have been deterred off it, but it's all up to preference, depending on what you want to do with it. I don't mind it's being who owns it, as long as I get access to it. Really hope this does come onto Creative Cloud Kit, because I'm a full user on that. And yes, start to bake all the textures now. What this does, it bakes normal maps, world space maps, ID maps, ambient occlusion, stuff like that. And as you can see, I'm starting to get warning errors down here, but you don't have to worry about that as much. All that's yelling about is that it can't find polygroups. I've just noticed I missed them out. But I think that would have gone on the body, so that's not too much of an issue, especially when painting it won't spill onto any of the body assets. Okay. We're getting bit of frame drops on this due to what it's doing. I think it's taking a chunk of my CPU as well. Let me just check. Yeah, it's taking a chunk out of my CPU. This can be really heavy at times, depending on your machine. This machine is got an octa-core in it with 16 gigs RAM and 1 gigabyte. No, what? Not 1 gigabyte, an 8 gig card. So it's not exactly a low end. It's more of a mid-price gaming machine. I am wanting to put in since I'm wanting to go do more and more complex stuff. I am wanting to put a new graphics card in. If you do feel like donating, I'd give you a shout on my next video, and add you on. Be really appreciative of it. However, I will be doing these videos every Wednesday and sometimes Friday. I am now doing Gaming Sunday, which is normally I'm going to be doing the Tales of the Borderlands series during every Sunday. I've done episode 1 already, and episode 2 is this Sunday. Okay, now it's actually touching the face. As you can see, what it's done is it's baked some of the high-res detail onto this mesh. Sometimes I don't know why it does this, but as you can see, it's done that really hard thing around the face, around here. And I'm getting screen drops. Like, there is no tomorrow. Come on. Okay, my intro weird. Okay, so it's almost done. Okay, now it's baked. As you can see, it's actually done a lot of the detailing from the high and baked it onto the low using texture maps. Where's that paint gone? Okay, so switch these on to material. So as you can see here, it's added all the detail. It does look a bit glossy, but what I'll do is I'll show you how to take that out in a second. Because it's doing it with no UV maps, well sorry, no materials. And what I'm going to do is create a fill layer on all of them, and it's going to convert them all grey for some reason, but convert it white and increase the roughness. Can you see there? Now it's dropped that metallic-y, rubbery look. What you can do on this is actually copy and paste it onto them all. Like that. I'm going to turn down the panoramic a bit because it is a bit high. So this is the panoramic it's using, so you can actually get some real world effects on it. So you can see the ground is actually lighting up on here, and so giving it this brownish look here. What I like to do now, just to save me time later, since I've still got Blender open on this, drag it onto my opposite side screen, hit this icon here. Like I said, it's that plugin I showed you earlier, which is this one here. Really nice plugin. It saves me so much time when creating all the materials. And what I'm going to do, as you can see, I've got it set to Blender. This works in Cinematics 4D, Houdini, Maya, Moodoo, Toolbag, and 3ds Max. And you can set it to whichever type of renderer it's using. With Blender, it only accepts either cycles or Eevee. Eevee is the new 2.8 rendering system, which I've introduced, which should be real time. What's this? Okay. With this, all you need to do is designate a location where you want the materials to be kicked out at. So I'm going to choose the assets 2, create a new one called textures. Select that folder, select that. And all I need to do is make sure. One thing I did pick up when I started using this is the additional materials. Sometimes adds a few, such as opacity, emissive, SSS. SSS, which is subsurface scattering, hasn't been introduced into Substance Painter 2017 at this point, but this is designed for later versions, but it does work with 2017 version. All I need to do now is create all. It'll start processing it like it is here. Now I'll bring this back over. And this. What's it doing now is actually creating all those materials. Because what I'll do at the end of this, I'll actually do a rendered version of it, and I'll show you the settings I use, because I actually don't use CPU, I actually use GPU, because that means it's running from my graphics cards. I'll also show you a quick trick on how to set that up, because you'd think it'd be quite integrated, but it's not as much as you think it is. Okay, let's see what it's doing now. So it's still processing through. Okay, so it says the materials have been sent. So what I'm going to do is hit save. And I'm going to jump onto this guy. So since I've already got materials select, I'm going to change this to materials. Material view. Don't crap out me. Okay, and I'm going to click on save. Really should have done that beforehand. EP2 assets, I'm going to save this. Alien. UV mark corrected to save that. Okay, what's it actually? It's already pre-built, done it over the top of them. Yeah, because as you can see here, it's now moved all those textures on top of it. So if I need to chuck a light into here. Rotate it slightly, move it back. You can use a sun or a hemisphere if you want, all dependent. Quick save on this. And I'm going to switch over to the render view. Just be warned, sometimes this can cause issues. Don't know why it does it, but it just does. Especially with kernel view. Something about switching over to the GPU. Sometimes it works, and it's worked on this time. So as you can see here, that all those textures have moved over. Last time I did a render test on this, instead of using the high, the high one took 3 minutes to render over, and to render per frame, and the textured version, so one of these, took 30 seconds. So you can see why you need to bake high to low and use textures instead of high density meshes. Okay. I'm going to switch this back over to material just to save power. I'm going to give it a quick save, minimize that, and let's start texturing this guy. What you can do is, there is a website called, if you're using Substance Designer, it's called Substance Source, which I'll bring up now. Which is this. It's a really great tool. However, you do have to subscribe to it. Other than that, what you can do is use Substance Designer to create your own. I own both, but sometimes I find it slightly easier to use one of these. So, like, if I jump into skin, you can get different skin materials, such as skin mole, foot material, all sorts. And it saves time trying to create it. So I don't need any of these since I've got most of these downloaded. These materials are great once you start doing stuff like clothing and such. And you can also use it on creatures, pendant on what you're doing. But like I said, I might do a series on how to create your own materials in Substance Designer, and then show you how to take it into Substance Painter. So yeah, let's have a look at this done. Like I said, this is a really great tool, especially when you want to do something really, really quick. So what I'm going to do is add, not exactly add that one on there. What I'm going to do is take that off. As you can see, it's tried to add it on, but the textures just haven't come across right. So what you can do is increase it in the UV in this. As you can see, it's added a bit too much. So what I need to do then is reduce the skin roughness. I'm going to increase it a little bit more. Like I said, the mouth hasn't UV mapped itself properly, annoyingly, but we can fix that later. So what I'm going to do is copy this over onto the body. But due to the body UV mapping, it's slightly different. So let's increase the roughness on that because that's a bit too glossy for my liking. So this is actually a great way of adding additional height and normal on top of it. So let's have a look if we actually put the face on top of this. Increase the roughness. So what did I change the body roughness to? Yeah, they're roughly about the same. So yeah, if we try to UV map everything at once, like we beforehand, it would not have worked out too great. As you can see here, it's not done too much of a good job on the mouth, but we can actually fix that later. So, let's move all these down to the bottom of the piles so we don't have to deal with those, and we can actually put our own texture on top. So see what an alien green looks like. Quickest way of doing that is just simply by opening up a new tab online and type in alien green. And what we can do is type in hex. So what hex is, it actually brings up all the hex codes, which is these random numbers, so 151FF0D, or it gives you the alphas, so the RGB codes. I don't like any of those. See what happens if I type in alien grey. Alien grey colour. So this. I'm just going to drag this over here into my other screen. What you can do is if you click on this the dropper tool, you can actually do real-time drops. So I'm going to choose second, that one. Face I want slightly lighter. Oh, click on that. Yeah, I don't like that. What I'm going to do is jump onto height and jump onto body. And I'm going to turn this one down a bit. Let's see what I've turned that off. Okay. Jump onto face. Okay, face is turned off as well. Okay. Now we've got those. What I'm going to do is add a shell. Sometimes a metal effect can do wonders on shelly type of. No, that's plated. Jump onto arm. That's a really nice detail. So we can flip through our materials, see what other materials, because what I'm going to do now is actually paint, so I need to create a new layer, which is here, and try to find a material I like. So what's this? Just come out looking like. Need to change the draw size down. Go switch on symmetry. So if you hit Control and then scroll, or left click actually changed like the softness, and scrolling actually increases and decreases brush size. You can actually do that in this panel here, all dependent on what you have access, dependent on how you're using it. I'm using a Wacom tablet at the moment, so I don't want the height, and I want this to be jittered. So what we're going to do, jitter size, jitter flow, angle and position, all altered and random. Then go down to here, I don't want the height or the roughness. All the normals. So you can see it's just spotting it on. So as you can see, I switched on symmetry beforehand, and it's actually painted both sides of it, just like as we wanted it. I may change this closer to our next video so you get different looks. I will give you a catch up on how I did that. And what we need to do is create a new layer and make sure we're using a colored brush. I'm going to choose this green. Okay, scroll this down. And what we're going to do is on the arms, try to build a few so it fuses over the two. What we're going to do is bring up the colouring again, and we can actually get better colouring on it. That's better. That's actually merging the two. As you can see, I've accidentally gone a bit over up here, but what I can do, since I created this as a new layer on its own, is actually go back into it, into this layer, and hit E, hit erase, again use the control tool, hit control button and scale, and just okay. Made a slight hiccup. So it was this tool I was using. Switch back to brush. Select this. Turn off high and normal. Metallic as well. And that's coming up a bit too strong. Why is that doing that? Should give me more control over it. Ah, there it is. Need to turn off normals, that's why. I'm going to increase the brush a bit, slightly higher. So, just make sure when you're doing it, you always create a new layer when you're trying to merge something. It hasn't done it as what I hoped it on this, but as you can see, I can easily fix that without having too much of an issue. And as you can see there, it's created that nice merge point. Between the two. I'm going to do the same again, but this time actually create a new layer because I don't get why it didn't do it last time. So drop that. What I'm going to be using in our next session will be Blender's rigging tools along with a muscle system IO. I will give you a link to those below once I get a chance. But as you can see, when I'm painting over the top of these two, I am going to correct some of the UV mapping on top of this, because as you can see, not UV mapping, normal mapping, because you can see some of it's coming over, which I don't want it. And paint that. It's done it again, so I'm just jump back down. So all I'm doing now is just merging the two the shell and the skin together, so it gives it a really unique look. Like I said, I may change this for the next stream next Wednesday. And let's hope that's just on. Yep. So now let me just erase that and so yeah. Let's have a look what it looks like now. Switch this one off. Yeah, it's not as helpful as I hoped. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this layer. And what I'm going to do is just go around painting it in this green. So once I drop my next colour on it, don't have to worry as much. Turn the jitters down on this because I want. At the moment I do have this under pressure controls. Switch back to erase around here, clean that up. Okay, 1 and 2 switch between the erase tool and the brush tool. So 1 is the brush and 2 is erase. It's a quick shortcut you can use when doing stuff like this. I have done a secondary character, which if you've seen my Instagram page, you will recognise it, which is the four-legged character. I may do a textures like this, but I do have ordered a surprise in, which I will be doing a live stream on, me creating it once it arrives in the post. It's gonna be it really likes faces, let's just say that. Well, this version doesn't know. Okay, now they're painted, what I'm going to do is add a material layer in between. So let's go with skin colour there. So that must not have been separated from the body texture. And of course I forget to switch that on. Wait a sec. Okay, when you're doing paint, remember to switch back symmetry if you want to do some quick bits like this. However, I think we're not having symmetry on this one. We'll give it less of a symmetrical look. This really won't affect, because if you notice, you're not exactly symmetrical on both sides. And sometimes it does, when it does this, sometimes if you paint there, it actually does paint on the opposite side. Really annoying habit. I think they may have fixed it in later versions. Okay. Okay. Now I've got that to that stage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look for, what's this material? Let's delete that actually, because I really don't like it. So what if I drag this guy in? So that's not done too bad actually. What I'm going to do is actually change, go out this colour. So let's go do a real-time change there. Don't know why it went pink instead of the colour I chose. That was weird. And I'm also going to give it a quick save. Save it as O2. And this is why you save. So hopefully it doesn't crash. Just give it a minute. Okay. So if you're watching this on catch up, so if you're watching this either on Twitch or on YouTube, check out the link in the chat, which is down the side. Join that if you have any questions. So what I'm going to do now is, yep, it's saved. I think it's when I tried saving it, it's caused that issue. So yeah, the link to my Discord server is down the side in the chat. I will add this onto the YouTube in the descriptions below, along with the link to the software I use. What I am going to do is also, once this guy is finished, I'm going to be doing some 3D prints of it. With a 3D printer which we own, because we used it to make props for different projects we're working on. Okay, what I'm going to do is select the face, grab this colour. I'll blind it a bit. Yeah, that's more like it. What I'm going to do now is again grab a body colour and go around the edges around here so it looks more conjoined, so it's not jumping from one texture to another. So yeah, like I said, I'll give you a link to all the items in the either on the chat down the sides, along with a link to the server. So, see, what I'm doing now is just blending the two together so we don't have this nasty seam down the side. Do let me know if there's anything you want to see in the future, such as any creatures, if you want any kaiju, or any hard surface assets such as environments, anything like that. What we can do is we can do those in different live streams. Like I said, I do have a surprise, but I'm waiting for it to turn up in the post. So I don't know when that's going to arrive. I'm also going to show you how to scar. Once I've done the blend between, I'm also going to show you how to do scarring between the two. So if you want to add additional details and not want to go back into, let's say, ZBrush again, what you can do is actually do it inside this software. What I'm going to do is, this guy's going to have a really nasty scar on his chest from, let's say, a creature attack. And I'll show you how to design that. Okay, I just got on my stream. Has my stream gone live or has it gone dead? No, my stream's still alive. So I just got a report saying my stream's gone dead, which is weird. Down there. And as you can see, that issue with painting on top has popped up again. So let's get rid of that simply just by using the erase tool. So yeah, now it's almost nicely seamed in, so you don't see the difference between the two, yet you can see it on the character with how the skin acts. Instead of what I've done, what I've chose to do instead of having like shell-like, I'm having the arms painted. One thing I can actually do is we can actually have things like say handprints on. What we can do is just use textures, like use a decal. But at the moment I'm not going to go too into that because I need to focus more on getting this finished in the next 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to be ending the stream roughly around 10 o'clock my time. Okay. So, a quick way of adding detailing, if you haven't had it already, is by, let's say you want to add like a scratch. I've got perfect material for this, which is called Weld. It has a really unique welding line in the center of it, so you can actually use it on all sorts of different things. So I'm going to click on this, click on weld, go and enlarge it, so it creates this. But I don't want any of the color, nor do I want the metallic. So all I want is the roughness. So what I'm going to do is rotate it so it looks like it's been scratched across his chest. Click on the body, create a new layer. So I'm going to call this scar. So okay, another thing which I would suggest you doing is going through all these layers and figuring out what these layers do, because you don't want 1.5 billion layers trying to figure out what each does. So So that can go because we don't need it. I can call this brand between. Or I can call this paint layer. Okay, that gives it what I need. That can go because it's empty. Okay, one thing this guy does need is eyes. What I'll do is may do a quick catch up once we've got this guy finished in the next session, and show you how I did the eyes and got those into this and made sure things worked properly. So this is going to be, that's blend diagram. So I'm going to jump onto the body. I'm going to jump onto the scar layer. Go use if you control and click, you can actually change the rotation. So I'm going to try to scale this down a bit so I can get more control. So there, can you see how that is now adding detail, which could have been added in ZBrush, or it could have been added in Substance Painter. Substance Painter is a lot nicer because you don't have to have as much geometry, but you can have issues. So yeah, now this guy's got a nice scar across the crest. What I'll do next section, in the next one, is show you how to create a cloth type material to go around there and have that dangling. What we could do is have it, if we shrink this down, we could have it, so let's say a nice scar across his eye. So we'll just click on the face, create a new layer. It's kept the settings, so once you go across, so this guy's more of a warrior than anything else. One thing I'd say about this, it does add this really nasty texture on it. So I'm going, what you can do is just go around it. If you are using a Wacom tablet, it does make life a lot easier to do it because you don't have to worry about as much control issues, if that makes sense. Because it's more, you can do all the finite detailing. Okay, just increase this guy a bit more. There probably is a scar tool which you can get hold of, but I don't have that installed yet. I'm not sure if I do or not. However, I always find the weld tool always does give it a nice After Effects a nice effect, especially with it being jagged. So I'm going to do the same with the body as well, but with this one I can actually use a larger brush for the erase. As you can see, it's keeping the skin detail from layers below. I want to double check if I'm still streaming or not. Okay, yeah, I am. What I'm going to do is get rid of these ones. Now we'll clean up the edges, because sometimes if you do use some of these materials that don't come out as clean as you hoped, because it can override your previous normal data. So yeah. Now what I'm going to do is try to figure out which map these goes in. So that's on the body texture. So what I'm going to do is, there is like a red material in this. So can't remember which type of material I use. Ah, now I know what I did. Last time I did it, I actually painted it using the colour. So what I'm going to do is create a new layer. So it means I can just do a mass deletion if I do overstep. Create a jump onto pen. Close this material down. Jump. Oop, didn't want to do that. Go to base colour. And we're going to go more reddish like this. You want to increase the metallicness, reduce the roughness, keep it up here. See how that comes out looking like. Then what we need to do is figure out what layer this is on. Which it seems like it's on none, which is strange. What we can do is we can actually fix that using a different technique. So what I'm going to do is actually take this red spot. Now, so what I'm going to do next session is probably build a tongue for this guy, which will hide this patch error, because I do not get why the UV map created that. When it got UV'd, it shouldn't have done that. which is weird. Okay, so this is what we've got so far. And what I'm going to do now is resend this back over to our Blender file, so this file here, and all you need to do is hit refresh. Really should have saved, but oh well. Now once that's processed through, I'll jump back to Blender and I'll show you what it'll look like once we've actually got these materials preset in. Sometimes it does say it's not responding. It is, it's just don't click around on it. So as you can see, it's still processing in the background. And if I click on it, I'm going to click save as and save this as free. And now if I go to Blender, it should have transferred over. And yeah, it has. However, not all the textures. Okay, give me a sec. View scan and refresh. Go recreate all. If you refresh or create all, it's overrides the pre-existing textures and it should refresh inside Blender. Sometimes it just doesn't like to do it. I don't know, it could be because I'm using a slightly older version of Substance Painter, or it could be something else. To install this, there is a little bit of altering of file. To install this plugin, you do have to alter some files and such as that, which can be slightly of a pain, but not too much to worry about. Okay, let's see what it's done. I did not mean to do that. If in doubt, click save and reopen. It's weird sometimes if you do reopen the file, it corrects everything again. It's one of those quirky little bugs it has. Now, even though we've got to this stage, what I'm going to do is show you a quick trick. As you can see, this has already created a material editor. I have a pre-built one, so like this, it actually looks like this. So the software builds this automatically. The plugin builds this automatically. So it makes sure that everything is correct and actually makes sense. What I'm going to do is jump back to default. Oh, that's composite default. What I'm going to do is on this is change the subsurface to 0.3 and Wait a sec. So make it so it selects this green. Best way to do this is just by jumping back to just textured. So this. You can get light issues. Click on that. Click on this button here. Drag it out. Click on that. Click select that. And same again on the face. And the arms as well. Otherwise it turns it pink. This one I'm actually going to choose the blue. Change this to 0.1. One and 0.1. Now I'm going to hit save because sometimes this can cause crash issues. Don't know if it's just mine or if it's just my system or if it's something else. What I'm going to do is switch over to rendered view. Okay, this sometimes can take a minute or so to do, but it's loaded it, and this does have a really quick update time. And it says I'm out of memory. Okay. Close that. What I'll do is close this, because I don't need it anymore. Should save it. So I should jump there. Now it's rendered it. Now as you can see, those scar details come in nicely even though they weren't on the original mesh. What I normally do on this section is actually add a HDRI. So what well, that is it. Whenever you're doing any CGI, what you want to do is make sure that the director actually takes a photo, gets a chrome ball, and sometimes the on-site photographer does this, gets a chrome ball, puts it in where the character is, or where it's in the middle of the environment, then gets takes a close-up and takes a raw shot of it at maximum resolution. What this allows us to do with that, then put it into Blender and get realistic lighting and create it from that instead of having to try to recreate it. It's not too bad if it's a full CGI scene, like it's the only thing that is in the scene is a monster, but when you start adding real world objects into it, it can cause issues. So what I'm going to do is add node, go to here, add an environment texture, open this environment texture. I have some which I use for mine, so if I jump to Blender, blur, production, Blender, HDRI, CGI, HDRI, and I'm just going to use some. I think this is just a house background. Honestly, I can't remember. Yeah, just house background. And as you can see, it's not just using the environment lighting anymore. It's not using that hemisphere lighting, because I can actually turn that off. Take that off in rendering as well, and so that hemisphere lighting doesn't exist anymore. What I can do is change the strength of it down, because that's a bit too strong. Change it to 0.3. And as you can see now, it's actually altered the entire thing. But you can now actually, I'm going to save this, so if it does crash, because as you know, we just had some issues with lighting, well, memory at least. And I'm going to go to this, hit, that's on GPU compute, which it should be, since it's going to be rendering from the GPU, and I'll go hit render, and it needs camera. Okay. Jump into material mode. Create camera. Some reason with Blender cameras, they do put them in, when it create them, it puts them in a really dodgy angle. Don't know why. So what I normally do is reset all rotation, then render it up and put it on 90 degrees angle. Then rotate that around, so that should be 180. Back. If you hit Control 0, it actually takes you into the camera view, which is a nice way of doing it. That's a bit low and a bit too far, too close. I'm going to take it back a bit. Control 0. And if I hit F12 now, when I was doing this last time, it took roughly 30 seconds. However, with this now having HDRI in the background, it may take a little bit longer. Oh, it could completely crash out. One of the two. But if it does crash out, we've just saved, so meaning we can just quite literally add the new camera and it's done. Now, what I'm going to do is, as you can see in the link description on the side, there is our Discord. So if you do have any questions, just join that. I'll add you into the group, and then you can post any questions about any live streams, any issues you are having. If you're watching this on catch up on YouTube or Twitch, on Twitch you should be able to see the chat bar down the side, and on YouTube check the description below. And we are in the middle of building our custom websites, which will have all the links to our YouTube channels, our YouTube channel and the previous episodes in the description. Like I said, sometimes this can take a minute or two to load, especially when it's using kernel or kernel, however you want to pronounce it. And as you can see there, it's rendered it in, and this is rendering at 50%. Now if I render it at 100, you can see it sticks out a little. However, normally this is corrected in post-process, and this HDRI isn't exactly designed for this one. Because it looks like the guy's slightly floating. But for the time being, it's not too bad. Ways we can correct this is by adding new light source, because like I said, this is already correct. As you can see, it's got shaded, so it's actually detecting that the light source is up at the top and going downwards. And however, when we're processing this I personally use After Effects for all my editing, and then took it into Premiere Pro, add all the audio in that way. Just say it's one of those processors I use myself, and it can work. Like I said, this sometimes when rendering, when using cycles, it can be a little bit of a memory hog, such as this took just shy of 4 GB of RAM to process through. So be careful when you're doing this. I'm going to call it a night. I will upload this onto YouTube sometime tomorrow or tonight, depending on how long it takes to process through. And I'll see you guys either on Friday if my package has come through the post, which will be a surprise modeling night. And if it hasn't, I'll probably see you on Sunday, which is our gaming, which we're doing Telltale Games. And otherwise, we will be doing the rigging of this character next Wednesday. And we'll also I'll be showing you how to create the controllers so you can animate him a lot better. What we'll do in that one as well is pose the character, and after that one I think I may be doing an environment build for this character, so you can actually pose him in something like that, and may create a weapon for him. Because this guy's meant to be a soldier, we will also add some clothing onto him because he's a little bit dark. And my voice is going again. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Like I said, Discord link will be in the description below or in the chat down the sides. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them on the Discord server or in the comments below. If you do feel like donating, we have a Streamlabs donation page. At the current moment, we're trying to upgrade one of our PCs, which will give it a better RAM processing, graphics processing, so we can do more VFX, such as using Houdini and such, which will allow us to create better content and such. Okay, guys, I'll see you next Wednesday at the latest, and this Sunday, and I'll see you guys then.